Could it be true? Is Ty Borden, one of the most beloved characters in Heartland, really coming back? For years, fans have kept the hope alive, scrolling through rumors, watching every behind-the-scenes clip, and holding on to even the smallest hint that Graham Wardle might return. And now, something has changed. Something big. Whether you're a Day One fan or just discovered Heartland, this might be the moment we've all been waiting for. When Season 14 of Heartland aired, it didn't take long for fans to realize something was terribly wrong. The very first episode delivered one of the most heartbreaking moments in the show's entire history: Ty Borden's sudden and shocking death. After surviving so many challenges, from his troubled past to near-death experiences, no one expected Ty's story to end so suddenly. The cause? A blood clot from the gunshot wound he had suffered in the Season 13 finale. It was quick, quiet, and devastating. Amy stood there in disbelief, holding his hand, unaware that the love of her life was slipping away. And just like that, Ty was gone. This wasn't just a character leaving a show. For many fans, Ty was the heart of Heartland. His journey from troubled teenager to loving husband and father inspired so many. He was a symbol of change, growth, and redemption. Watching him fall in love with Amy, build a life on the ranch, and become a father to Lindy felt like witnessing something real and special. His connection with the horses, his bond with Jack, and his brotherly relationship with Caleb made him unforgettable. So when the news broke that Graham Wardle had decided to leave the series, it felt like more than just an actor moving on. It felt personal. In interviews, Graham shared that it was a deeply spiritual decision. He felt it was time to explore new chapters in his life, to grow in different ways. He thanked the fans for their years of support and explained that his choice to step away came from a place of love and self-discovery. Still, the loss was hard. Watching Amy grieve in the episodes that followed made it even more emotional. She had to learn to live without Ty, to raise their daughter alone, to find strength in herself. The show shifted its tone. It became about healing, about facing life after tragedy, and about discovering new kinds of strength. Fans were divided. Some felt the show would never be the same without Ty. Others admired the courage it took to tell such a raw and real story of loss. But even among the mixed reactions, one thing remained the same. People missed Ty deeply. Social media filled with tributes. Edits of Ty and Amy's most touching moments circulated everywhere. Fan fiction imagining his return appeared across forums. It became clear, Graham Wardle's presence was more than just a performance. It had become part of people's lives. As Season 14 gave way to Seasons 15, 16, 17, and 18, the show slowly found its rhythm again. New storylines developed, and other characters stepped into the spotlight. Amy continued to grow, Lou stepped up as mayor, and Lindy brought light into every scene she was in. But Ty's absence always lingered in the background, like a shadow, on a sunny day. No matter how far the story moved forward, Ty's memory remained close. Fans held on to hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, Graham would return, even for a moment. Maybe in a dream, a memory, or a special episode. The kind of appearance that doesn't just move the story forward, but also gives fans the closure they've been waiting for. And that brings us to now. Something is happening. The hints are no longer whispers. They're getting louder. Could Heartland be preparing for the biggest surprise in years? For a while, it felt like Heartland was learning how to breathe again. Without Ty Borden, everything looked familiar but felt different, like returning home to find your favorite chair missing from the room. The ranch still stood strong. The horses still galloped across golden fields. The family still gathered around the kitchen table. But there was a silence, a pause in the rhythm. It was as if the land itself was grieving. Season 18 didn't try to replace Ty. It didn't push his memory aside or rush forward carelessly. Instead, it did something far more powerful. It honored him by letting the characters grow through their grief, not away from it. Amy, especially, showed us what quiet strength looks like. She didn't leap into a new love story or chase after big dreams. Instead, she stayed grounded. She continued training horses, raising Lindy, and rediscovering herself in small, meaningful ways. There was a maturity in her grief, something that reminded fans why Heartland has always been more than just a show about horses. It's about people learning how to live again, after loss, after change, after heartbreak. But while the surface seemed calm, something was building underneath. Eagle-eyed fans began to notice the details, little things that didn't seem accidental. There was a new softness to the storytelling, a deeper reflection in Amy's quiet moments. Scenes of her looking at old photographs, especially those of Ty, lingered a little longer than usual. The camera would pause as if giving space to feelings that couldn't be put into words. Then came the dream sequence in episode 7. Amy stood in the field at sunrise. Lindy ran ahead, laughter echoing through the crisp morning air. And for a brief second, Amy turned her head, just slightly, and smiled. The kind of smile that felt like seeing a ghost you didn't fear. The scene ended without explanation, but fans caught it immediately. Something about it felt different, hopeful. Was that a setup? A sign? Jack, too, seemed to be reflecting more on the past. He spoke more often about Ty, about the kind of man he became, the choices he made, and how much he's missed. There was a sense that the writers weren't just keeping Ty's memory alive. They were preparing something important. And then there was Graham Wardle himself. Off-screen, he had stayed relatively quiet about the series. He focused on his podcast, Time Has Come, where he explored personal growth, spirituality, and life beyond acting. But in the months leading up to the end of season 18, his tone started to shift. In one episode of his podcast, he spoke about unfinished stories and the idea of coming full circle. He never mentioned Heartland by name, but the fans heard the message loud and clear. A few cryptic Instagram posts followed. A single photo of a horse. A sunrise that looked eerily similar to Hudson's skies. A comment liked by Amber Marshall. Each post felt like a breadcrumb leading back home. That's when speculation exploded. Reddit threads lit up with theories. Was Ty coming back in a vision? Would he appear in a special tribute episode? Was there a lost letter or message from him yet to be discovered? Even YouTube was filled with breakdowns, frame-by-frame analyses of the latest season, trying to catch any subtle hint of Graham's return. The cast didn't help calm the rumors. In interviews, they smiled a little too knowingly when asked about Ty. Amber Marshall, who plays Amy, gave a curious answer in one Q&A. The past never leaves Heartland. Sometimes it even finds a way back. Fans didn't need anything more. Season 18 ended with a feeling of anticipation. Not a dramatic cliffhanger, but something softer, a sense that a new beginning was about to unfold. The ranch felt fuller. Amy stood taller. And the silence that had once haunted Heartland? It had started to sound like the calm before a storm. Storm that could bring back a familiar face. Graham Wardle had said goodbye. But what if that goodbye was never meant to last forever? It started as a whisper, just one of those fleeting thoughts fans keep tucked away in the quiet corners of hope. At first, it was nothing. A reposted quote from an old interview. A horse that looked too familiar. A scene that played out with the kind of silence that said more than words ever could. But in the world of Heartland, nothing goes unnoticed for long. And before anyone could say, it's just a theory, that whisper had grown into a storm of speculation that refused to be silenced. For a show like Heartland, built on emotions, family, and tradition, every detail matters. And over time, those details began to look suspiciously like clues. Ty's old jacket hanging in the barn, Amy dreaming more often, Jack staring off into the distance while holding his coffee, lost in memory. Lou pausing mid-sentence whenever Ty's name came up, as if the past was knocking, just waiting to be let in. But the real sparks didn't come from the show. They came from the outside world. Graham Wardle had always kept a respectful distance from Heartland since his departure. He said his goodbyes, thanked the fans, and focused on his personal journey. But in late 2024, everything started to shift. It wasn't loud or dramatic. That's never been Graham's style. Instead, he began sharing small moments that felt oddly familiar, almost nostalgic. a sunrise on the ranch, a leather-bound journal resting on a windowsill, a black and white photo of a river with the caption, "Some paths are never truly closed." Each post stirred more and more questions. But what really sent the fan base into a frenzy was a moment from his podcast. In a quiet, thoughtful tone, Graham spoke about the power of letting go, but also the beauty of returning. He talked about revisiting old chapters, not to rewrite them, but to give them the ending they deserved. He paused, long enough to let listeners feel the weight of what he didn't say. And in that silence, Heartland fans heard it all. It soon after, Amber Marshall added fuel to the fire during a fan event in Calgary. When asked directly about Graham's return, she didn't confirm or deny. Instead, she smiled and said, "Some stories find their way home. You'll see." That's all it took. Within hours, social media lit up like a prairie wildfire. TikTok exploded with fan theories. Twitter, or X as it's now known, buzzed with excitement. YouTube creators dove into every recent episode, combing through scenes for hidden signs. Did that letter Amy opened in episode 9 really come from Ty? Was that his voice in the background of the dream sequence? Why was Graham seen near the Heartland set just weeks before filming ended? For weeks, nothing was confirmed. And then, everything changed. Heartland's official page dropped a teaser trailer for season 19. It was short, under 30 seconds. No faces. Just a slow walk through the ranch, the sound of a heartbeat in the background, and a single line spoken by a familiar voice. "I never really left, Amy. I've always been with you." The voice was unmistakable, deep, gentle, Graham Wardle. The internet froze. It was real. Ty Borden was coming back. What followed was a tidal wave of emotion, joy, shock, tears, celebration. For many, it didn't matter how he was returning. Flashback, vision, dream, or something more spiritual. The fact that he was returning at all was enough. Graham himself broke the silence the next day. He posted a black and white photo of a lone horse standing in the early morning mist, captioned with just 2 words, "Coming home." That post hit over 1 million views in a matter of hours. Fans from around the world poured out their emotions: gratitude, excitement, memories. People shared how Ty Borden had helped them through hard times, how watching his journey gave them strength, how his return felt like getting back a piece of their own story. It wasn't just a character return, it was a reunion, a healing. Full circle. And just like that, everything changed. Heartland Season 19 had become more than just another chapter in the series. It became the season that would bring Ty Borden home. But how exactly would he return? And what would it mean for the family he left behind? That's where the story gets even more interesting. Not all returns begin with footsteps. Sometimes, they arrive on a breeze through the open barn door, in a voice heard at dawn, in a dream that feels too real to be just a dream. When someone means as much as Ty Borden meant to Heartland, their return doesn't need to follow the rules of time. And as season 19 approaches, fans aren't just asking if Ty is coming back, they're wondering how. Because in Heartland, nothing is ever simple. And nothing is ever wasted, not even pain. There are many ways Ty could reappear, and each one carries its own weight. For some fans, the most expected, and yet deeply emotional, return could come through Amy's dreams. Not just a one-time vision, but a recurring presence that helps her navigate the most difficult decision of her life. Maybe she's at a crossroads, faced with a choice that could change her and Lindy's future forever. And in her dreams, Ty appears. Not to tell her what to do, but to remind her of who she is. Imagine it. Amy in the barn, late at night, the sound of rain tapping the roof. She closes her eyes, and suddenly, she's standing in the pasture. Ty is there, smiling, calm, wearing the same jacket from their early days. He says nothing at first, just looks at her the way he used to when words weren't needed. That's the kind of moment that would stay with fans forever. But there's another possibility. One more grounded and maybe even more powerful. What If Ty didn't just come back in a dream, but through something he left behind? A letter, a journal, a video he recorded for Amy and Lindy that was never meant to be seen unless something happened to him. A message filled with memories, advice, laughter, and love, giving Amy the strength to face the future with her head high. It wouldn't be just nostalgia, it would be guidance, closure, a gift from the past, perfectly timed for the present. Or maybe it's Lindy who sees him first. Heartland has always had a touch of spiritual energy, those little signs and moments. That can't be explained. What if Lindy begins talking about someone she sees in her dreams, someone who rides with her in the field, who tells her stories about horses and courage? Amy brushes it off at first, thinking it's just her daughter's imagination. But then Lindy says something only Ty would have known, something that stops Amy cold. It would be subtle, beautiful. A moment that blurs the line between memory and miracle, and then there's the boldest theory of all. Some fans believe Ty might not be gone in the way we think, that his death was part of a bigger story yet to unfold. Maybe there was a reason we never saw the full aftermath. Maybe Ty was taken away for protection. Maybe he survived, but circumstances forced him to stay, hidden for years. It sounds wild, but Heartland has pulled off emotional twists before. If season 19 dares to go that route, it would shake the very core of the show. Amy, thinking she's built a life after loss, is suddenly faced with the impossible, the love of her life alive, but different, changed by time. And now she has to choose between the life she rebuilt and the one she thought she lost forever. Whether his return is spiritual, emotional, symbolic, or something more literal, one thing is clear. Ty Borden's presence will change everything. Jack, who mentored Ty like a son, will find new peace in seeing him honored. Lou will revisit her beliefs about life, grief, and healing. Tim will face the raw truth of the son-in-law he never fully appreciated. And Amy will finally be able to exhale after holding her breath for years. The ranch will feel whole again, not because Ty is back full-time, but because the story is finally coming full circle. And what about Lindy? Her story is just beginning. But now she carries something rare, the spirit of two incredible people, Amy and Ty, woven into every lesson, every ride, every choice she makes. As the trailer ends, we hear it again. Ty's voice. Some journeys never end. They just take a different trail. The screen fades to black. A soft breeze passes through the Heartland ranch, and for the first time in years, it doesn't feel like something is missing. It feels like something has come home,